Episode 1. The students at the Shio Junior High School are tasked to consider their future career paths. So Mob's friends and classmates seriously discuss their plans for the future. Most of them appear very confident as they have their lives planned out, unlike Mob, who is genuinely confused. Therefore, he goes to the Spirits and Such Consultations office to discuss the same issue with Raijin. Raijin feels that Mob does not have to think much as he has already found his true calling by working as a psychic. Unfortunately, Mob is not sure since it is just a part-time job. Although Raijin reassures him that there is a good chance that Spirits and Such Consultations office may grow into something bigger in the future, Mob is hardly convinced. Soon a client visits the office to get an 80,000 yen doll examined that he believes to be cursed as it has only brought bad luck in his life. While Raijin claims that the client has nothing to worry about, Mob tells him to not touch the doll as it has been poisoned by a deep-seated grudge. After learning this, Raijin tells Serizawa that he was just testing him and leaves the responsibility of exorcising the doll up to him. Interestingly, the latter easily manages to fix the doll but ends up breaking one of his arms, which is later put in its right place by Raijin. Mob discusses his career choice problems with his family that night. His father and brother share their opinion, but his mother feels that their solutions are simplistic. The following day, Serizawa, Mob, and Raijin visit a middle-aged man at his home who claims to be cursed by an evil spirit that no psychic so far has been able to exorcise. He goes on to claim that the evil spirit got him fired from his part-time job after inappropriately touching a female coworker. It also chased away his girlfriend and gave him cavities. The client is concerned that he will continue to live a meaningless existence without ever finding his true calling or forming genuine interpersonal relationships. While Mob and Serizawa listen intently, Raijin, who had just gone outside, finds an evil spirit growing just above the house. He returns to his friends immediately and tells them about it. Mob and Serizawa spring into action and exorcise it, after which the client thanks them for their help. After they have exorcised the old man, Serizawa appears really concerned, so Raijin naturally asks him if there is something wrong with him. He reveals that the confessions of the old man really hit home, and he honestly now feels that he is also in the same boat as him. Raijin is quick to point out that if he continues to have the same attitude, he won't be able to last in the business for long. He goes on to reassure Serizawa that has hardly lived half of his life, so he still has plenty of time to make a name for himself. Since Serizawa has realized the pitfalls of his poor choices so early, Raijin considers this as a plus. However, Mob also reveals that the old man's story hit home for him too. He now feels deeply concerned about the future, especially after thinking so long about his future career options. He admits that he hasn't made any serious mistakes so far, but he feels that the day may come sometime in the future. Later, Mob meets Raijin at the Spirits and Such Consultations office and confesses that he does not see him working there in the future. He goes on to explain that he feels too comfortable there, which will likely affect his future growth. Raijin assures Mob that he does not need to worry about his future as of now. He is sure that Mob will eventually find a lot of things that he will wish to do, so he should not be too concerned. However, Raijin does tell Mob to remember that he himself founded the Spirits and Such Consultations office on a whim. But it's now become something that he plans to do for the rest of his life. He concludes his career advice to Mob by mentioning that whatever he plans to do in the future does not necessarily have to be office work, but it can also just be him living life on his own terms while making a living in the process. Episode 2. With the cultural festival just 2 weeks away, students in Mob's class are already entrusted with different responsibilities. When it turns out that Inukawa, Haruaki, Sagir, and Keijama are yet to be given any roles, the 4 classmates are tasked to prepare costumes for the haunted house. Meanwhile, at the student council meeting, Ritsu is concerned about a few themes of the festival. According to Ritsu, the concert will definitely be too loud and will naturally lead to noise complaints. He goes on to argue that the idea of the cross-dressing cafe is absurd as well. However, the president is confident that if students follow safety precautions, then all will be good eventually. In the following days, Keijama continues to worry that other students have already made a lot of progress while his team has hardly done anything. Meanwhile, at the Spirits and Such Consultations office, Serizawa asks for Raijin's permission to join the night middle school as he plans to retake the compulsory education. Raijin sees this as a good sign and feels that Serizawa genuinely wants to improve, so he gives him his permission to leave after 4 p.m. A man named Amakusa Haruaki, who claims to be a real yakai hunter, visits the office to discuss something important. However, when Amakusa tries to introduce himself, he ends up fumbling and only gibberish comes out of his mouth, which makes Raijin think that he is another weirdo who should be ignored. With a client scheduled to arrive soon, Raijin tells Amakusa that he does not have enough time. A few hours later, when Raijin has finally helped the client, he plans to take some rest. But to his surprise, Amakusa has been waiting near the door all this time to get a chance to finally talk to him. After they sit down, Amakusa explains that he is a yakai hunter who is planning to go after the evil group called Hyaki, which plans to resurrect the great yakai king. While Raijin is still not interested, the yakai hunter changes his decision after paying a hefty sum of money. Mob arrives at the office just in time to join the trio as they search for the 100 demons around the town. Mob, Serizawa, and Raijin follow Amakusa Haruaki as he visits multiple locations around the town looking for the dreaded place where Hyaki's 100 demons strong force plans to resurrect the great yakai king. After a long search, Amakusa stops at a dilapidated building and claims that he feels a slight presence of yakai coming from it. Interestingly, Serizawa also agrees with the claim, while Mob is still lost in his thoughts about the costume design. As the four of them enter the building, Amakusa's concern only grows, and he senses that the yakai are not only there but are likely planning to make it their stronghold. As they explore the place even more thoroughly, they suddenly realize that the path they entered from is somehow closed now. Although his mind is still preoccupied with the cultural festival, Mob also fights back along with Serizawa. The two of them easily dominate the countless yakai that attack them. Amakusa suddenly remarks that the 4 Hell Lords of Hyaki are there now and they have also managed to resurrect the great yakai king. Serizawa and Mob kill the 4 of them without even breaking a sweat. An infuriated yakai king suddenly grows into a huge monster, looking to take revenge for the death of Hyaki members. However, Serizawa and Mob manage to kill him too, supposedly without much effort. At the cultural festival, Mob uses the yakai king as an inspiration for his costume design for the haunted house. Episode 3. Tsubomi has a real snot issue due to her cold and she can't remove her hand from her face because the other girls might see and grab a picture of it, eventually posting it online. Amid all these fears and anxieties, Mob arrives as a hero and distracts the other girl with some task, handing Tsubomi some tissues. Tsubomi thanks Mob and says how they haven't talked in a while, following which she bids a quick farewell with a see you later. These 3 words are enough for Mob's heart to start fluttering like crazy. On his way home from school, Misato stops him in his tracks to ask him to accompany her to the Psycho Helmet gathering on Sunday night. Seconds later, Tome arrives and reminds Mob that he promised to go and help her find telepathists on Sunday. Both the girls leave and in comes Emi from the back, telling Mob how he's become popular with the girls lately. It strikes Mob soon, and with a mental spark comes a realization that he's indeed becoming popular with girls, including even Tsubomi. From there on, Mob starts hearing things and praises, also imagining girls fawning over him. While his misunderstanding increases, so has the number of shady religious organizations at the broccoli tree. Misato calls over and almost convinces Mob to go to the gathering with her. Meanwhile, Dimple arrives and asks for the same, claiming they should join forces and become the gods that all those cults wish for. Mob refuses and asks Dimple to refrain from his tactics of old, telling him that he'll be going to the gathering instead. At the consultation office, Serizawa updates Raijin on his night school, and Mob does too, including about his upcoming visit to the Psycho Helmet gathering. Raijin is reluctant to this idea until he sees the following that the cult has managed to aggregate and the monetary beneficial opportunities that it opens the doors to. Mob heads off to the place and waits for Tome, who does arrive at the promised spot, nor does Misato, while Mob sits and waits for the two from the afternoon till evening. Meanwhile, at the gathering, all the numerous different cults that the tree has given rise to come to the audition and appointment of the new founder of the Psycho Helmet cult. A boy resembling Mob while also looking like he's made of vegetative matter arrives on stage and proclaims himself as the founder of the Psycho Helmet religion. There's the outrage from all corners at this, but they're all horrified when he performs a miracle, growing a giant broccoli tree from nothing in an instant. Episode 4. The day after being stood up by Misato, Mob meets her at school to hunt out what really occurred to her instantly the sooner evening. She apologizes to him and explains that she was invited to the Psycho Helmet religion congregation, the place she, the true founder, confirmed up. Mob slowly begins getting uncomfortable with the rising effect of the cult. However, when he meets Raijin, he appears to take points evenly. But Raijin himself is at present frightened by the divine tree's rising roots that are destroying the city's infrastructure and inflicting his enterprise with a number of losses. Elsewhere, Hanazawa instantly realizes the haunting powers of brainwashing that are ensuing within the astronomical improved throughout the followers of the Pisco Helmet religion. He decides that he has had enough and goes to the divine tree to destroy it for good. However, he surprisingly will get sucked inside it by its powers. There he meets Dimple, who is unquestionably pretending to be the founding father of the cult and is ready to not let this opportunity slip from her fingers. Hanazawa displays no mercy and scales back the imposter's physique into objects. However, it ends up regenerating barely only a few seconds later. After their discussions throughout the office, Raijin and Mob head to city to see the changes for themselves. That's when it struck Mob that they're being at all times watched. However, Raijin dismisses his declaration as he feels that his colleague nonetheless feels he's widespread, so he's merely imagining points. Sometime after that, Raijin introduces Mob to his grass plant. He explains that they're going to raise the divine tree using psychic powers, then carries it to the ocean, the place they'll submerge it underwater. Mob is happy that the thought could merely work. Nonetheless, the duo decides to call Ritsu with them too. Meanwhile, at the Scholar Council meeting, Ritsu is shocked by the rising effect of the Psycho Helmet religion as properly. When his brother reaches school with Raijin and asks him to affix them, he decides to go together with them without asking any question. However, when Ritsu finds out about their plan, he feels that carrying the divine tree to the ocean will possibly be virtually not doable. Ritsu tells the duo in regards to the rising effect of the Psycho Helmet religion of their school. However, when he feels an odd feeling in his head, he decides to eat the candy given to him by the Scholar Council president, who claimed they've been made for encouraging tourism throughout the space. But after consuming it, Ritsu undergoes an odd shift in his character. He then leads Mob and Raijin to the Seasoning City Civic Center, the place he introduces them to the members of the cult. All of them do not directly know what Raijin and Mob plan to do. Ritsu argues that the divine tree brings peace to all people's coronary hearts, and the Seasoning City received never be the equivalent without it. When Raijin inquires what end in his sudden change of coronary heart, Ritsu claims that he merely had a way that everyone will possibly be present at this location and he ought to defend the divine tree at the least bit cost. The members of the cult shortly freak out Mob and Raijin, who run away from the Seasoning City Civic Center. And that is all for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and turn on notifications for our next video. Take care.